Beaver Stadium, Penn State just beat UCLA. Part of the celebrated Fox big noon kick. Joe Smeltzer, Jarrod, and Prugar with Nittany Sports Now. And Jarrod, Penn State won this game in convincing fashion, 27-11. It was 27-3 into the final seconds when UCLA got a meaningless touchdown and an even more meaningless 2-point conversion. I don't know what the goal was going for two there, but anyway, Penn State got a win, and honestly, I can say that there really isn't a ton to say about this one. Penn State dominated on the scoreboard, but it didn't feel dominant, right? Kind of the opposite of Illinois last week. It wasn't a very good team. We knew that a slow start was possible with it being a noon kick, and Penn State's track record with noon games and really in general of being a better second half team. But for the 5 games that Penn State's played so far, this is probably the least noteworthy. I can't think of really a ton to talk about, but we're going to talk about it anyway. So.
Yeah, I mean, the running game was obviously Nittany Singleton being deemed not able to go right after warm-ups, according to Coach Franklin, was a factor. Katron Allen played. Quentin Martin was in the game, but wasn't a big factor. He had a couple different plays where he was involved in the pass game, the run game, whatever, but wasn't a big factor at all. The receiving game was okay. Liam Clifford goes over the century mark for the first time in his career, but it was just very blah today. And it was, I think a lot of it was just looking past UCLA a little bit. Obviously, backup quarterback, very easy to just kind of go through the motions, play your base stuff, and knowing that you have a colossal showdown at the Coliseum next week. And I think that's really, I don't want to say this was makings of a trap game, but it very much was. Knowing what's at stake next week as far as the Big Ten Conference and the college football playoff is.
Yeah, and you mentioned them, obviously, probably the big thing coming out of James Franklin's press conference was that Nick Singleton not playing was not really expected until the last minute. He mentioned he wasn't seen at practice by media on Wednesday. Thursday, they thought they would have him for Saturday. Friday, they thought they'd have him. In fact, Matt Sennis at 24/7 Sports reported that it was very likely that Singleton would go. Game day comes, he's listed as questionable on the injury report, and he ends up not playing. And it doesn't sound, we don't know, but it doesn't sound like he'll be out for USC, but they need him.
They need him, but it's also good that they were able to win without him. Yeah. Obviously, UCLA, they didn't necessarily need him. But again, now he's a little bit fresher going into next week, a lot less banged and bruised up, depending on the severity of the injury. But he's going to go into LA and playing against USC next week, a little bit more fresher than what we'd expect. And I think that's good for a feature back like Singleton.
I think the biggest story, Jarrod, of today's game from a human interest standpoint was the guy you hit on earlier, was Liam Clifford. He had only 3 receptions, but they were all pretty big. He ended up going over 100 yards, and this is a guy that's a rarity in college football, right? In this age of the transfer portal, a guy being at the same school for 4 seasons isn't commonplace the way it used to be. But here's Liam Clifford in year 4, had a lot of hype around him from the coaching staff, players, former players, etc., going into the offseason. Hadn't really put much together yet, but today he really put it together and showed what he could do against the Big Ten defense.
Right, and I think he played a really good game, and Aller found him for some deep plays. 2 of the same play, really, and they helped propel some big drives. And I think when you're able to get that type of production from guys like him, Harrison Wallace, Amari Evans, and even Julian Fleming, I think that's a really good problem to have. And then you add in the running backs and the tight ends. This offense is deep, and I know that I've said this multiple times this year. We are still not scratching the surface because the Big Ten conference play is heating up, turns all the way up to a flame. I think this week going against USC, and we're going to see the best this offense has got.
Joe Smeltzer, Jarrod, Prugar with Nittany Sports Now. Getting into our final takeaways, mine is that I don't think we really learned anything about Penn State today that we didn't already know. The defense is very good, and the offense is coming together. We think that the best football for this offense is still yet to be seen, and maybe we'll see it in Game 6 of 12 at USC. But I would say my takeaway is that these slow starts are going to burn Penn State eventually if they don't get it corrected. You give up 24 in the first half against Bowling Green. You start slow, even to a small extent against Kent State. I think it was only 7-0 at the end of the first quarter. Illinois 7-7 at the half. Those teams aren't as good as Penn State, aren't as talented, aren't supposed to be Penn State. So you can get away with it against them and get away with it like they did today against UCLA. But last season, we saw at Ohio State, the offense started very slowly. At Michigan, kind of the same thing, and it burned them. And if that doesn't get corrected, which history has shown, it could burn them again.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the other thing. They have to start a little bit hotter, 3 and out to start this game, and then a 6-play drive. The next drive out isn't the recipe for success when you're playing against USC, Ohio State, Michigan's of the world, and into the playoff and the bowl game. So I mean, if they can start a little bit better, that's imperative on both sides of the football. They gave up 46 yards in the first drive, didn't give up any points, but it was a lot of bend, don't break, get adjusted to the game type of deal. And for me, the biggest takeaway is they won. It was an easy game. It wasn't like this game was ever in jeopardy, but they won. They're 5-0. They're going into the Coliseum next week, ready for a big matchup, and that's when we're going to find out a lot about Penn State football.
Absolutely. For Jarrod Prugar, I'm Joe Smeltzer, Nittany Sports Now. We'll have plenty of content on our site throughout the day. And then next week at USC, I won't be there, Jarrod won't be there, but we'll still have on-site coverage courtesy of Alan Saunders from Steelers Now, which is going to be pitching in. The Steelers are in Las Vegas. Penn State is in California. Reasonable drive, at least not accounting for LA traffic. But we'll still have on-site coverage, and it's going to be a pretty big weekend across college football. Next weekend, October 12th, and Penn State USC is going to be one of the biggest games there is on that weekend.